let's go on to our next discussion. It's on consumer-driven Insurtech, the new age of digital insurance. On this panel, we have our first speaker, Neeraj Gupta. He is CEO of Policybazaar.ae, which oversees the venture of India's biggest insurance aggregator, Policybazaar.com. Neeraj envisions fostering a behavioral change in the UAE relating to how finances and social security is perceived in the region by the masses and promote digital channels as the preferred medium for the consumers when managing personal finance. Following him, we have Jonathan Rawling. He is CEO of Yallacompare. Prior to joining the Yallacompare, Jonathan spent 20 years working in the insurance industry in the UK, Switzerland, Australia, Middle East, and Turkey. He was audit director at Zurich, and most recently, he was the CFO for Zurich in Middle East and Turkey. And also, we have Avinash Babur, founder and CEO of InsuranceMarket.ae, one of the UAE's largest insurance providers. Since its launch in 2010, Avinash has built the brand into a market leader now with over 150,000 life policy holders, recognized by its famous frontline outfit, and renowned for its unparalleled ability to offer customers great deals backed by great service. Welcome all of you.
I can't help but smiling when I see all of you. I feel like I'm part of a high school reunion. I'm so happy to see all of you and very welcome. And I think this talk we're going to have today is going to be relevant, especially for the people here in the audience, but even also for me, right? Because what I wanted to discuss with you is the customer experience, the ways of engagement with the customers and the distribution. I have a lot of questions, but this is just setting the stage, right? Where are we today? Where are we going? Why is it that aggregators like yourselves, don't get me wrong in this question, are needed, but what is the value that you're capable of giving instead of us just doing it ourselves? So these are some of the things that I'd like to discuss. And this is for the audience. Normally when we prepare sessions like this, there are some questions back and forth about what you as panelists would like to discuss. And Neeraj, I'm just starting with you because there is a question that you'd like to discuss, how Insurtech can buckle up, as you say, to provide services to attain stakeholders' trust. And if you don't mind, and I hope I'm not throwing you under the bus here, I would actually like to stop and ask you about the last part of that sentence. Where is it that you feel Insurtech doesn't have the necessary trust in the industry at the moment? I think that's a really interesting question.
Fair enough. Thanks, Fred. Thanks for having me here. See, I'll take that. Why is insurance or the Insurtech still not gaining as traction, right? I believe the reason lies in the engagement, right? How is the consumer engaging with insurance? I believe in this region or globally, if you see, consumers are not engaging with insurance, and that is where the entire ecosystem has to come into play. We have to start engaging the consumers. If you look at our India story, India, what we've been doing for the last 13, 14 years, we've been engaging the consumers. And that is what we've been trying, have more communication with consumers. So now, if you see why that trust is going to happen when we engage with consumers on what they feel about insurance, what they need about the insurance, right? See, consumers themselves do not get up one day and say, okay, let me buy an insurance product, right? It's not something you want to feel good about buying. Hopefully, a lot of consumers, when they want to look at buying insurance, they have faced some or the other eventuality. Either their friend or family has gone through a bad time or somebody else, right? And that is the trigger point for them on the insurance. And historically, insurance has been seen as a cumbersome process. At times when you need it, you might not get it. So it has an inherent distrust built around the processes being there, right? And that is where the entire ecosystem is trying to work on that. bring in more transparency, have a fair conversation with consumers, and get that trust. See, our objective is to educate the consumer first. It's once the education happens, engagement happens, then consumers will start transacting also, and that is where we believe we will play a major role.
Thank you. And that's a good, and you're right in what you're saying, right? Insurance is not something nobody wants to buy, basically. It's a lot of money, and you hope you're never going to use it, right? And if you use it, it's typically a problem. Jonathan, you've been in the region with the aggregators and that experience for quite a long time, right? But do you feel our members, insurers, policyholders, do they even want to talk about insurance? Don't they just want to be left alone? So what Neeraj is saying, is this applicable for the region, or should we just say no touch at all? So we never want to talk with you, just pay us the money. What is your experience?
Yeah, it very much matches Neeraj, and maybe to expand on that a little, I think not only do people not really want to think or talk about insurance, probably their experience of insurance is probably twofold. Experience number one, you bought car insurance because you have to, and experience number two, you bought health insurance because you have to. So both of those two things are also sort of putting in the consumer mind, like, this isn't necessarily good for me, this is something I have to do because government tells me, and so problem. But I completely agree. I mean, outside of those mandatory classes, there are all kinds of great insurance products out there that actually people should have, they should want to have, and they should feel better because they have them. So I think part of our challenge, as Neeraj says, is we need to engage with customers more, but perhaps we need to engage with whatever the other behavior is that's driving the insurance need. Perhaps it's starting a family, perhaps it's playing a sport or something. All of these things are creating various insurance needs for the consumer, and we're not doing enough collectively. And I think as an industry, this is not just an aggregator problem. We're not doing enough collectively to explain what those gaps in cover are and how we can help close those gaps.
I agree with you. Thank you. And Avinash, I just want to, if you don't mind, to extend on this. I mean, you put Alfred on everybody's mind, right? And it also seems from the marketing that you are doing that, as Jonathan and Neeraj are saying, you're also trying to push towards, come talk to us. But do you feel that you have something to talk about? Sorry about that. I'm not trying to be nasty here, but it's more, do you feel that there are some content that you actually can talk about instead of just insurance?
Absolutely. I mean, look, we're dealing with a line of business that is fundamentally quite boring, and people don't really want to engage. It's not something you wake up in the morning and think about. There are more interesting things for people to buy. Nevertheless, that doesn't mean that it's not important, which it is, of course, we know that. And more so, the market in which we are operating, which I'm operating in, which is specifically just the UAE, it has some unique characteristics. So just to add on to what Neeraj and Jonathan were saying, in addition to, the inherent challenges of engaging consumers in insurance, we also have the added aspects of it being a transient population relative to other markets. We have the challenge of it being very diverse, which, different people with different levels of understanding and interest in insurance, different perceptions of how insurance works, and then we have the whole fragmented marketplace in terms of distribution channels, insurers, and just, nobody has majority market share right now. Nobody has meaningful market share right now. So, when you couple all of these things together, you find that, I think we're still at the awareness phase of insurance, and there's a lot of good work to be done to increase the penetration beyond just, like Jonathan said, on the motor and health.
Thank you. Yeah, and at the end or in the beginning, however you want to see it, you have the policyholder or the end user or the customer. And I have a question, but if you allow me to have a short intro to this question, we did in our customer service, because we wanted to reduce the number of calls and save cost and optimize and everything. So we thought, let's put in IVR system and automated bots and everything, right? To basically make it difficult for people to talk to us. What we did after was actually understanding why the people called us. So when because we got a lot of complaints about this system, so we're trying to understand why people were calling us, and we found out that the people calling us at the end of the day, they don't want to call us, but they exhausted all other options. They talked to their friends, they called their mom, they went online, they went to the app, they did everything. As the very last resort, they called us. And when we realized this, we removed the IVR because it simply made no sense. Why would we make it difficult for people to talk to us when they don't want to talk to us but calls us anyway? So Neeraj, back to you and this communication with the customers in an aggregator setting. Yes, they call you if they want advice of choosing the right policy, but aside from this, where are you? Are you in the same position, or what is your understanding of why customers are calling you instead of just going online?
If I can, I think probably let's if we're honest with ourselves, probably to a disproportionate extent, we've been using online to drive leads, to drive calls. So to some extent, we've been imposing that on people as well. And it's one of the things we're looking at right now. We call it accessibility. And it also links to the very good point you made about even if we had something to say, and I think we all do have something to say, even if we have something to say, how does the customer want to receive that information? Because, I mean, are we going to call them? Is it blogs? Is it what? And what we're finding is that we've surveyed a few customers and people want to communicate with us in different ways. And sometimes that breaks down along nationality groups. So some customers absolutely do want to hear the call. They want to hear that human on the end of the phone to explain the complex process to them, or just know that it's not just something, I'm going to put my credit card details and my money's going to disappear and there's no one I can reach. So some people do want the phone. That being said, we are seeing connectivity levels drop. And I spoke to a few people across the industry, insurers with call centers. They're seeing connectivity levels drop too. And by connectivity, I mean not as many people are answering the phone as they used to. You can't get us through to many people as you. And if you think about it, we probably all do that, right? I mean, I know some people that every time the phone rings, they answer it just in case they won the lottery or something. But a lot of the times you see a call, especially from a landline number, and you're thinking, no, I don't want to take that. I'm busy, I'm in a meeting, that kind of thing. So I think one of the challenges we have is we might not necessarily be communicating more, although that's probably a good thing too, is being able to match customer requirements with how they want to communicate with us and being able to talk to them that way.
That good point, but it also requires that you actually know how, what the customers prefer, right? Back to you, in this sense, are there any differences that from India towards your experiences here in the UAE in this regard as well, or do you agree with Jonathan?
So if you look at our experience from an India perspective, we were also heavily dependent on telesales, right? So we would touch base with the consumer, and as Jonathan mentioned, we were the ones who were reaching out to consumers proactively rather than waiting for them to complete the transaction. But what I also believe, every business has a progression and has a journey, right? So now we have evolved, at least on the India part, certain product lines where I wouldn't reach out to the consumer unless he wants to speak to me. Right, so we've at least stopped one leg of reaching out to the consumer, and what we've realized on the other leg also with our data and everything, the consumer were reaching out to us for very basic things. He wanted to understand where he could claim, where could he get his soft copy, it was missing in his email, so we built those tools around it and educated consumers to use their My Account app features, and we saw a drastic reduction in the inbound calls as well. I believe in the UAE, what we also see is, UAE, if you look at, it is a very deal-driven market. You will have deals running around for every and anything 12 months of the year. And somehow to a section of consumers, what we have realized, they believe that if they talk to or engage with a person, they might be able to get a better deal. And that is what we've seen as an underlying piece across. And I believe over a period of time, especially with an insurance, I believe, as Avinash also mentioned, we are in a discovery phase. We are still not, from a technology perspective, there where a consumer can come online and complete a transaction digitally fully. The at best, what he do is probably make a payment and then wait for a policy, right? So when those processes are broken, then the consumer at time is wary about where his money is, where is the policy, or how do I claim. So I believe once we start to define those very clearly around the processes and become more digital, we will start to give comfort to consumers that okay, you don't need to interact with us over a phone or a physical medium. See, look at Uber, how Uber started, right? Uber never ever had a toll-free number. When you book a cab, the service is there, that's about it. But their product was very standardized and was very easy from a perspective because they understood what the complaint could be, right? And they were managing those services and whatever. See, in this also what we have to realize at times is from a distribution perspective. See, we have a certain sort of role, and at times we are also dependent on the manufacturer to complete some of the activities. The policy issuance, the risk is at the manufacturer, right? So at times we also do not have clarity on certain things, and we will have to wait for an update from the manufacturer, which means the consumer is waiting much further, which means he wants to speak and get to know, he's agitated or whatever, right? So I believe as an industry, both distribution and the manufacturer, once they start to align processes more digitally, where things become more seamless, we will start to see a consumer interaction reduce.
But Neeraj, thank you, because what you're saying here, and some of the previous sessions today, I'm just having a question, and I'm sorry, Avinash, if I'm throwing you under the bus. You can always tell me later. But when we start talking, when you as aggregators, the distribution channel starts talking to the customers, because this is at the end what we all want, right? Customer engagement, because then we have loyalty, we have upsells, cross-sells, and what have you, right? But now the insurance companies, they're looking at artificial intelligence and predictive analysis, so they can say these people with 98% certainty they have a dog, so let's reach out to them and sell them dog insurance. So then this would be from the insurance companies reaching out, or should it be Avinash? How are you working with this? Who's reaching out, right? Maybe the insurance company have those data because they profiled the customers that you actually got to the insurance company. How are you dealing with that issue?
What I'm seeing more and more is that insurers need to go back into focusing on what their fundamental role is, which is to price risk and manage portfolios and be able to segment and bring on board clients that work for them. And so what we've seen, at least again in our market, is because of the lack of scale for any one insurer, they've not really been able to focus too much on distribution directly, which means that they have a limited relationship with customers. And so when it comes to profiling, when it comes to cross-selling or upselling or whatever you want to call it, developing more touch points, more relationships, more engagement with customers, I think that's incumbent upon us, because our core business is just distribution. We're not underwriting, and as a result, I think it's incumbent upon us to make insurance more accessible and promote awareness, like we were saying earlier, and increase the penetration rate of insurance in a market like ours. So that's how I would approach it.
But that's a good answer. So you're saying incumbent insurers more focus on actuarial data, underwriting, AI in pricing, and let the distribution and the customer knowledge to the aggregators. That's the point of view, and it's interesting. And it actually leads into one of the questions from the audience, because if you're going that way, and Jonathan, maybe you want to take over here. Are you? I don't know the answer to this actually. Are you allowed to give that advice? Are you allowed as aggregators to act as insurance advisors? Because I mean, that's what you're saying is also if this is the case, the aggregator, the distribution channel would need to add more complex products, right? So Jonathan, is that something that you can do today?
We can, and the regulations in the UAE, as everyone knows, changed last year, and the discussion we had with the regulators is fundamentally those regulations were designed for everyone that was in the aggregation space to acquire broker licenses. So all of us on the call now, we have our own brokers in the background, and so that entitles us to give it whatever advice we believe appropriate. I think if you're just a standalone aggregator these days, in this country, you can't do very much at all. You can't keep data, you can't speak to the client, there's not a lot you can do. So really, I think this market has moved more towards an e-broker kind of approach rather than aggregating.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's basically just prices, what you're saying?
Yeah.
That's interesting. So Neeraj, just to move on to one of the other questions, just put on my glasses so I can read it, because it actually ties into this. And again, following up on you, Avinash, if you take the standpoint that insurers do what you're best at, and we will do what we are best at, distribution, knowing the customers. What role would aggregators be playing? Now the question here is more responsible role. I'm not sure I know the word wise responsible. I don't think anyone has acted irresponsibly yet. But to play a more active role in product value and the design of the product, the covers, the limitations, the exclusions. Because if you are the ones knowing the customers, wouldn't we, the aggregators and the insurers, have to have a closer collaboration? So you actually would feed back to us and say, guys, nobody wants this product, they want this instead. Please help us, right? Neeraj?
So if you see, that is what we've been doing. So from a front face of it, a lot of people ask us, like, are you just a price comparison? And that is essentially not only what we do, right? If you see our journey, right now, obviously we will bring a lot of our technology aspects and our learnings from India, which is to give you what we've been building in India. Right now, what we're trying to do on motor, health, and every aspect is get much more deeper into the service element. We are telling the consumers, okay, if you have a claim, we are there. We will fulfill everything.
I'm sorry if I'm rude here, but the question is more actually feeding back to the insurer, not so much. I know all of you are focusing a lot on the service aspect, but it's more the feedback loop. So
I wanted to come to that. I'm saying from a service element is what that tells us is that we also get into much deeper into the data actually.
Yeah.
And now what we are realizing is, and what we are working on the data is, once we are also looking at the service element, now we know a lot about the consumer data. Now we are segmenting those and going back to reinsurers and insurers and creating much more better value for consumers. See, if you look at a health insurance in India, typical coverages which were available for an individual, a majority of the people were covered only for a $2,000-3,000 cover, which is not sufficient enough. So what we've done is we've gone back and created products which will give you almost limitless coverages.
Yeah.
And what we've done is we've priced the product in such a way that the price is not incrementally very high. Because we found a consumer segment which says that, okay, up to $1,000 I can cover the expenses.
Yeah.
I don't need you to cover expenses from zero. So now we were able to create that product which gives more value for the consumer, is a lot more transparent, and that is what we're doing. And if you see in the UAE also on the life side, we're creating products with insurers. Couple of products that are available on the platform would not be available on the, because we've understood the life data in that sense. The product creation and everything will start to come in at scale because we need to have that data. And now we're getting to that aspect. You will see a lot more product development, more transparency coming about from every aspect. Yes, we're playing that role.
And Jonathan, I feel you want to say something.
Yeah,